Welcome to OpsTok, the podcast where we explore the intersection of operations, technology, and business excellence. With your hosts Sahand and Tom. Today, we are privileged to welcome Larry Elston as our special guest. He is recognized for his expertise in manufacturing and his leadership across various industries, including automotive and aerospace. His commitment as a mentor has been instrumental in nurturing industry talent.
Welcome to OpsTok. We have a great episode with your hosts, Sahand and
Hey guys.
Tom. Hi, everyone. And we got a wonderful guest for you. We have a manufacturing expert from the Northeast, Larry Elston. Welcome, Larry, to the show.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Tom and Sahan.
So, Larry, it's so great to have you. We always at OpsTok want to talk about different stories about operations, different experiences in different manufacturing industries, different regions of the country. And your career has really taken you through different industries, from automotive to defense, working for some of the most respected companies in manufacturing. A lot of great leadership experience. But please, in your own words, we'd love to hear your journey in manufacturing and operations, and anything you can share with us about how did you get into it? What was your experience like, and what are you doing today?
So I wanted to just start out by thanking you all for inviting me to this wonderful segment. You know, manufacturing goes back to an open house at General Motors. My dad worked in a factory. I think he started when I was 2 weeks old in Baltimore, and it was Baltimore's assembly factory. Goes all the way back to World War II era. And I remember one open house, my mom and my sister jumped in the car. We had a hatchback, and we all buckled up and went to the factory. And I remember my first experience in a factory at 4 years old, looking at the vastness of the General Motors factory, and I absolutely fell in love. And, you know, to follow in your parents' footsteps, your dad's footsteps, my dad raised me around cars. So it was just natural that, you know, I worked with him for 7 years in that same factory at General Motors, but I also was selected to work in Detroit for a year. And, you know, I quickly became a skills trade supervisor, production supervisor, which gave me a really good priming for factory leadership. And you know, I spent 10 years in automotive. I launched Hyundai's first North American factory. I took the second shift from zero production to full rate production, actually beating out the first shift's numbers regularly. Trained over 2,500 employees. They actually used my training methods. So very successful automotive career. Then I pivoted and got an executive MBA from Auburn, and took a little bit of time off to refocus on that experience. Studied in China and South Korea. And then Raytheon called me. I've been applying to Raytheon jobs in aerospace. I wanted to take my career in a different path, and the aerospace industry is reputable from the sense it's probably the premier technical industry, and I was thrilled to have the opportunity to come to Raytheon as a project engineer. So the terminology was PE, and they actually had a handbook for the PE role because it was so multifaceted. And one of my first assignments was the lead control section engineer and rocket motor engineer. And Honeywell Toronto, Mississauga was one of my, top critical suppliers, Sahan. So right in your neighborhood, you know, I spent a lot of time traveling from Arizona to, Toronto in Canada.
Wow.
And it was just phenomenal. Honeywell was going through their renaissance of lean manufacturing at the time. And when I got there, things were not in order, and new leadership came in and implemented lean across the factories, across the work cells. That actual factory in Mississauga does most of the recording boxes for the for the airline industry, and Boeing and Airbus and all the other big players. A lot of those recording devices that are recovered and installed in airline and jets are made in Mississauga, Toronto. So I have lots of stories around that engagement, but I also became a respected rocket motor subject matter expert, and they kind of fell in my lap during the years at Raytheon. I took a lot of stretch roles with Raytheon and moved 6 times in total, moved my household around the country. And to my advantage, what that taught me was employee engagement, employee retention, and the pillars of respect. I learned that my first couple of years with Raytheon, and the pillars of respect, showing appreciation, acknowledging others, gaining others' trust through engagement and openness, was something that built the culture so strong at Raytheon that all the competitors looked to Raytheon as kind of their pipeline for talent. So we competed against Northrop Grumman and Boeing and Lockheed Martin for the same talent. And a lot of times the folks coming out of Tucson would go to other companies and boomerang right back to Tucson as a center of excellence and the gold standard, if you will, in aerospace culture. So that's just a little bit about my journey. I think Raytheon was a hallmark of my career. I really took myself from a project engineer all the way up to a associate director, which is probably 7 levels in 15 years. So I really moved quickly through the organization, but it was not a straight line trajectory. It was definitely a jagged, saw-like trajectory, lots of ups and downs, lots of challenges, a lot of travel to other suppliers. And one of the things that my key takeaway feedback that I received multiple times from different leadership in the critical supply base was that I was the type of person who would come in and Raytheon would say, hey, we're going to send you some help. You guys are behind schedule. We need our hardware. And, you get the eyes rolling the first week or 2, you show up at a critical supplier. But I've always gotten the feedback that, hey, Larry, you actually came in and helped us and didn't interrupt, our processes, but you supported our processes and made them better with your objectivity, with your skills, and with your ability to, bring the technical teams together and help us hold ourselves accountable for excellence. So that is my career in a nutshell.
That's amazing. Yeah. I know a lot of things jumped out at me, and I think a lot of things resonated with my experiences, and I think one of the best advice that with your story talking about, you advanced very quickly in your career, right? Multiple levels in a short amount of time. But you said, it wasn't like a straight line. And I think that a lot of people, don't realize that in a career, like sometimes it's not exactly a straight line. And when you are a high achieving go-getter, sometimes that might seem like you're just supposed to get promotion after promotion. But I know in my career, many times I've had to take a step back to then leapfrog into another promotion. So I love what you talked about on the path. Any advice you would give to someone going into a career in manufacturing? What are some of the things to be able to be successful in it?
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention several mentors that I had. One particularly at Raytheon, I was so fortunate to catch the eye of a chief engineer, an executive fellow level engineer. And I couldn't have done what I did at Raytheon without his support, his guidance, and his sponsorship. So to answer your question, Tom, directly, I implore to all aspiring engineers and and even, supply chain leaders, managers, quality professionals, I implore that you find not just a mentor, but find a sponsor. And sometimes your mentor is your sponsor, sometimes not. But a lot of their employee resource groups are led by senior executives, VPs. They are always willing to pick up a few, professionals and really provide guidance and mentorship and sponsorship. So it's getting involved, Tom. It's getting involved with the resource groups. It's getting involved with volunteer opportunities. It's showing up every day. A lot of people show up and they just do their role. The way that you get visibility to the talent pool, which is usually a list that the executives maintain across the business, the way you get on that list is you get out and you give more than just your 40 hours of just, your work assignment. You go and you stretch yourself into helping the company be more successful and building its reputation. So I know for a fact, I've mentored still at some of the top universities in the greater Boston area, Cambridge. These students are looking for an experience and not just a job. So they're looking for not just benefits, but they're looking for someone to actually coach them, mentor them, and spend time with them. So, the dynamic has changed a lot, and it's not as transactional as, it probably was many decades ago. I know mentorship has been around probably for the last 40 plus years. We've been talking about it, I think. And now sponsorship is really being talked about. And even, Tom, we talked about it earlier today, apprenticeships are exploding now. So meaning companies are bringing in students from high school and the like, and they are giving students the visibility into how the company runs at an early age in their career, in their academic endeavors, and giving people the options of going the skilled route, which is such a wonderful, route to take as a young professional. Is, a lot of students aren't going to universities or have the means to go and invest in, a formal, 4-year university experience or 6-year university experience, but they're going and getting trades. So, you get your apprenticeships in some of these skilled trades. And I mean, that can lead to a very fruitful business and even just, journeyman's, experience. It's just wonderful. And I've always gotten the feedback from different individuals that didn't go to universities that, they just love their jobs and their skills. So there's so many avenues out there, Tom, for people to pursue, and getting individuals early on, in their teens, to really start thinking about different opportunities that they'd like to pursue, and not just, oh, I want to be a lawyer or a doctor, but, hey, I can pick a skill up as well and do very well.
Absolutely. And one thing that, Larry, you're probably too humble to bring it up, but one thing I keyed in on what you said is the showing up. And you mentioned you uprooted your family 6 times to go across the continent. Yes. And you were there, right? Commitment, right. Going, not just doing a job, but really committing to, your career and the success of a company. In the past, I guess, couple of decades, company has kind of become, how do you make profits or how do you make money? And of course, as a company, you got to make profits. You got to be sustainable so that you can actually support employment of everybody. But right. The word company, it's a company of people with a shared goal. You're moving in a certain direction. So that commitment that you mentioned, and it's in your DNA, because you said your father took you to the, to the assembly line. And that's to be very much acknowledged, and also sort of talked about quite a bit, that yes, you show up, you put in the hard work, you work with great people, the mentors and the sponsors, and then, great things happen, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think too, it's very inspirational for everybody because you give clear guidance on what you need to do to get that sponsor and to get that mentor, because a lot of people don't understand, like, it's actually not that hard, like you're saying, the showing up. If you show the initiative, that list you mentioned, that's a real thing. There's leaders that you might not even know are talking about you, but they are, because everybody sees everything. And by showing up, taking initiative, you will get noticed. And it's just really, really solid advice on how to do that. So really, really appreciate that guidance. And yeah, I 100% also resonate with what Sahand and Larry, you're talking about, being that person that will uproot their family and move with the company.
Right.
That also goes a long way. That's not shying away from the opportunities that are presented to you. And I know that's a big sacrifice, and it's challenging. But if you work with a good company, they will reward you for making that sacrifice, and more opportunities will open up if you're open to them.
Yes, I agree. 100%, Tom.
Yeah. And speaking of the moving around, I wanted to sort of really tap into your wisdom around that, because you've been across the continent, in Canada, in my area, in Toronto area, as well as, Tucson and Northeast. Wanted to ask you a little bit about, hey, what kind of cultural differences you see in the context of manufacturing, especially since you've started second shift, you've started new operational plants, you've done it all. What are some of the things that stuck with you and you can share with us?
I think the common thread as you go across cultural lines and, the deep South, I've run factories in Mississippi and Alabama. And, I've worked closely with, factory teams in Canada and even in Europe. And the one thing that I see as a common thread that works across all cultural lines is levels of communication. And my strategy has always been, if there's a lot of work to be done, we're going to talk about it a couple times a week, and not just once a month or not just every other week, but we're going to get a structure put in place where we're talking on a Tuesday and we're talking on a Thursday. And what happens is you have an action item list. And if you're talking twice a week, you're getting twice as much done because you're holding each other accountable. So I think that, communication is very deep in its definition, and it goes down into accountability. And it's really important. I've worked with teams that really develop lessons learned out of every situation, and they talk about the lessons learned, they share the lessons learned, and they learn from each other. I think that's a strong culture, and I've seen that in several different locations around the country. In Europe, I think that, there's more, cohesiveness in the sense that, you're working sun up to sundown in Europe, usually with the teams, and traveling together and really solving problems collectively, and, doing a lot of brainstorming and trial and error. So I felt all across Europe, I felt that we spent a lot of time together solving the problems on the factory floor, walking the process back and forth. And, I used that same method in a lot of the assignments that I had across the country. And it almost seemed like it was foreign in some areas that I presented, the Gemba process and, hey, let's walk twice a day as a leadership team and as, a production and operations team. And, there's always been, Gemba, and safety walks, leadership safety walks. But actually going and taking notes and having an action item list that's titled Gemba Walk Action Item List, you'd be surprised how much more change and innovation happens because you're actually documenting and holding each other accountable to get things done. And that's what I love about safety walks, is that really you're walking to try to be proactive and find issues ahead of incidents or injury, incidents that cause injuries. And you'd be surprised how effective a good safety walk program is. But what I've noticed too is I really drive accountability in those processes, meaning I'm big on action item lists. And, I have had so much success closing actions because either they're valid actions and you're able to fix the action, or you delete the action because it's not valid. So there's some subjectivity in completing action items, but I think there's also accountability that's driven in the process, and people know that they're part of the success of the business because they've contributed to it.
And just a quick sidebar for our audience who may not be familiar with, that's code for I didn't understand it. Could you tell me what Gemba is?
Yes, Gemba is somewhat like a safety walk, but it's a safety walk on steroids, meaning on a Gemba walk, you are actually going to engage the operator in a non-interference way, meaning just saying hello, how are you doing? Is there anything that you need from a process perspective? How's your job going? And what happens is usually you'll get a nod, yeah, everything's perfect, everything's great. But a lot of times you'll get opportunities, just like on a safety walk, where you might not even be talking to operators, but just kind of walking through areas. When you Gemba, you actually thank the operators for the engagement, the time that they take to talk to you, and point out opportunities for the team to go and address. It might be a light that's out. It might be, an oven that hasn't been used in ages and they need the space. It's just opportunities. It's an opportunity walk, really, to address things and make things better for the operators. So I think one of the unsung heroes, and my dad was one of them, he worked in the trim department for General Motors for 30 plus years. And that was where he retired as well. And I remember walking through the trim area and seeing my dad, doing his job. And one of the things, he would take the initiative to write up suggestions. And General Motors had a really phenomenal suggestion program where they incentivized it and paid a percentage of the improvements to the actual suggestors. And a lot of people in General Motors made a ton of money, helping the company get better. So you get down to the granular level, and you're actually engaging the operators, because those are the people that really know where the hidden factories are, where the issues are, where the dangerous situations may be, so that you can go and address them.
I love that. Thank you so much. And honestly, Larry, this is why I love doing this podcast, because I'm a techie. I come from the tech background, and just you explaining to me in your own words and really giving the examples of Gemba, it's such a phenomenal concept that not only applies to manufacturing. I get it. You walk the floor within the physical environment, so much you can absorb from the people who are living it day to day, but it applies even new account. You walk, you talk to a few people as a salesman, and it's opportunities. Your clients or prospects will show you what they need, so you can, as a solution provider, get in there and help them. Right?
Yes,
that's phenomenal.
Exactly.
Thanks for that. The other thing I wanted to go back to, just now that we talked about tech a little bit too, you've lived manufacturing and operations for a couple of decades.
Yes.
How has tech changed? How has it morphed? What are some of the interesting things you see now, for good or bad, right? Like maybe, you can tell me a few decades back, ERP was the name of the game, and that we should have stuck with AS400s. Why are we, making it full of bells and whistles, and then things don't work anymore. Well, I have a thing about AS400, so Tom can tell you all about that another time. But yeah, how have you seen that evolve over the years?
I think one of the biggest challenges and things that I've seen over several decades in factories is the push for automation. So if you look at the scale of automotive, you're talking 1,200 units a day out of most factories in the automotive industry. And that's a typical day in the factory where you're producing 1,200 finished, automobiles a day. So you need the scale of the robotics automation and the assembly line, that continuously moves, and overtime and all the other things that go with the assembly line. But automation has changed a lot. And what I see is there's been a huge realization that the opportunities around automating test, and a lot of the aerospace industry is regulated by, stiff requirements, government requirements, military requirements, specs. And test automation has helped the efficiency so much of some of these tests that are redundant and testing that's run for hours and days. So automation has allowed some relief in the strenuous testing that's required in aerospace. So Raytheon, for example, they continue to push the envelope of automated test and test cells. And I've been a part of a lot of that creates, a real value to producing these complex systems that are required by the military and the government. So I think that automation has been a blessing to the industry, and I think it was birthed in automotive where, they have been using robotics for the last 30, 40 years successfully, and it really helped that industry move the needle and become more efficient. But I see the push now in aerospace with, automation, lots of CapEx annual budgeting is really pigeonhole for automation improvements and automation implementation. So in my last couple of roles, last few factories I've been in, I've been a part of that push in aerospace to automate as much as possible. And it really hasn't changed. You would think that that's pushing jobs out of the factory. And in actuality, no, it's not, because usually there's test technicians that we have to hire for each and every automation improvement or implementation. So, for example, I hired over 100 test technicians in my last role with Raytheon, and that was to support the advanced automation that we were also launching and new product lines. So I think automation and human engagement go hand in hand, and I think that's a misnomer in the industry, is that automation's taking jobs, and it truly isn't.
100% agree, Larry. I think that's something that I see very commonly on social media and articles talking about automation and this, doomsday scenario where it's taking jobs. But I know from the experience that, just like you're saying, that actually creates more jobs.
Mhm.
And I never personally seen it where automation, somebody made a capital expense, bought a machine, and laid off a bunch of people. I personally never experienced that, because as an operation leader, like, who would be crazy enough to take that risk? Usually it's incremental, it's with purpose, and you're adding more capability to bring on more demand. And now you're upskilling your team, right? There's opportunities.
Exactly.
So I 100% agree. I have not seen automation ever as a job threat. Really, it's more about elevating the game of the whole manufacturing plant and upskilling your team. So actually, opportunities there.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think, another thing is, as we talk about automation and upskilling, a lot of folks, and I think as manufacturers, we probably don't do a good enough job when we bring in someone either straight from high school or someone getting to their first manufacturing job. Maybe they work their whole career in the service industry and they go to manufacturing. Is, it's not really advertised, but in manufacturing, there's a ton of opportunities for professional growth and growth in your salary. Just to be perfectly um, clear on that, is that a lot of people don't realize, because maybe the path sometimes is not that clear, but you can come into a manufacturing facility and start learning on the job different
Yes.
skills, different trades. Yeah, do you have any examples of what are some opportunities in manufacturing for someone coming in with no experience on grow path, like the path to maybe a maintenance supervisor? I know you said you manage skilled trades and things like that.
Yeah. Temporary help is a true path into that industry. I think hunting season was a big deal in Maryland, and they would bring in probably 100 temporary workers, and a lot of those folks would convert to full-time employees. From my experience, and there's just, like I mentioned before, this apprenticeship process. Even my last few years at Raytheon in Tucson, we started partnering with one of the local vocational high schools, and we had probably 25 high school interns that worked year round. They would come in once a week for the entire day and paid. They were paid, and that gave them a tremendous opportunity. Number one, to put Raytheon on your resume as a high schooler, and also give them a glimpse into the operations and the vast number of jobs, from engineering jobs to operator jobs. So we had a really strong pipeline of operators coming out of high school, and there's just it has to be driven, Tom, by the industry and by the companies, but the companies should be partnering with their local communities and really creating that partnership and that avenue for people to apply to jobs and attain job employment. So I think one of the things that I get a lot, I get asked, hey, how was it working with the UAW, the union? And I said, I've been working with the union from the very start of my career, and in pockets of Raytheon, there were actually unions at different sites. And I think the biggest thing as a leader, a senior leader, is you partner with the union, the bargaining unit, and you treat them, with the utmost respect, and you hold your ground on the topics that you have to, promote the company, values on. But it really should be a purposeful and very, advantageous partnership with the unions. So if it's done right, it makes the company stronger. And I think that you see that in a lot of companies that are unionized, is that as long as the leadership team's working very closely with the union, you can avoid strikes, you can avoid people picketing and walking off the line. And you see some companies are really good at their partnerships and their collaboration with the unions. So I think that's another avenue, but it's also a necessary, partnership, that can be developed and maintained professionally.
Absolutely. And that's great advice, because so many people nowadays don't have that experience, right? Like there's definitely a divide in the country between union plants and non-union. And
Yes.
that's really stellar advice about partnering with the union. And I think extend that to regulatory departments, whether it's safety or some kind of government or industry specifications. Just it's not adversarial relationship. It's really partnerships, and I
Yes.
love what you said about the partnering with the community. That's something that I was able to do in my career, set up internship programs, and I think there's so much value in that for the students, most important, but for the company as well, from the engagement that you get, bringing in people with, zero experience, having that ability for your team to teach them. It works both ways, right? It's just like
Yeah.
we talked about mentorship. It's
Yeah.
it's not only it's for the mentor to give back, it's for the mentee to receive wisdom. So no, that's incredible. It's all about partnerships. I
It
love that.
is. I've got two examples from the Mississippi Center of Excellence at Raytheon, and I give them tremendous kudos for decades. They've been giving away turkeys, and they call it a turkey toss because we actually, as a leadership team, we toss the turkeys across the line and hand them out, hand them to everyone on the site. So we handed out probably 1,200 turkeys a year, or hams and canned goods. And during COVID, what was interesting was instead of just buying pizzas every Thursday, we would use the local catering services and restaurants, and we pumped in over $500,000 into that local economy just in doing Thursday lunches. We were actually doing Tuesday, Thursdays for a few weeks during the height of COVID. And what was interesting was anything that was left over, we'd let the parents take things home for their kids, their families. And that's culture. That's what really drove, the factory and kept the spread of, the COVID. With our COVID numbers were under control, and we never missed a day of production. We never missed a delivery during that whole 2020 time frame. But we also gave a lot back to the community and to the actual people that showed up every single day and worked really hard and in a safe manner, with social distancing and mask and everything else that we could do. We actually even was sending home sanitizer. We bought drums of sanitizer, and we actually would fill up sanitizer containers from people's homes and send that back home with them. So, the environment was just very cohesive, I would say.
Yeah, that's incredible because that hand sanitizer was worth its weight in gold
Oh,
during
yeah.
that time period. If anybody remembers.
Oh, yeah.
Really cool. And I love what you all did for the community, for the restaurants, because they were hit really hard through the COVID. So to be able
Yes.
to support them through the
Absolutely.
catering, it just shows that's what I think, people lose sense of why manufacturing is important. So much of our manufacturing has been outsourced over the years. A lot of initiatives on bringing it back, but it's
Yes,
such an important part of the community, and
it is.
it brings so much value to the community because these factories, they'll build products that go all over the world. But those
Mhm.
salaries, all that's going back right into your community. It's not taking anything out of the community. So it's great to see the trend, and what a great example of a manufacturer through COVID, through one of the toughest times, in my career that we've seen. So that's so cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, that
Thank
was
you.
such a great example. That's awesome. Really cool.
Thank you.
And I know we're getting close to wrapping up. So, Larry, I really, really loved having you on the show.
Thank
Definitely,
you.
I want to have you back in the future. I think there's so many
Okay.
things to talk about. Uh,
100%.
but as we look out to our audience for this podcast, what are some things that we can do for you to promote what you're currently doing? Get it out there to the audience that can connect with you. What can we do for you?
Well, I really appreciate that. And, starting my first business after a long career in the corporate world, it's been a little scary, but it's also been invigorating. I'm also a member of the Chamber of Commerce, and I spend time in DC at different events, and I've been networking like crazy, going to lunch, going to dinner, and just trying to launch, what I really have been doing successfully for, the top automotive and aerospace companies, and that's really bring technical teams together. So if you've got a technical team, if you got a top technical team and they're trying to solve some real, production issues in their factories or respective supply chain down into the supply base, I'd love to go in and partner with the team, bring some even added, fresh perspectives and fresh ideas to the team, perform workshops, but even just sit in and be an advocate for the teams and coach them through some very difficult, PFMEA processes and, DOEs, things like that, that require, a fresh perspective and, a different type of accountability. So my experience really is with the top engineers in these industries and bringing them together to solve the most complex problems. And it really takes rigor, it takes stamina, and that's why I'm so passionate about working with teams in these industries as I go forward as a technical consultant. And I am really looking forward to those opportunities and continuing to do the same great work that I did throughout my career for the last 25 years.
Awesome. And we will be sure to share the links and the email and contact coordinates on our website and in the YouTube video. ElstonPerformanceConsulting.com. Super excited to have you. I echo what Tom was saying. Really, really learned a lot, and I'm very excited, hopefully, to have you back again soon and keep the conversation going.
That would be fantastic. And again, I thank you both for your time today. And Tom, it's been a pleasure partnering with you on different topics, and look forward to continuing our, the weekly discussions.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure, Larry. Thank you for being on the show.
Yes.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you guys.